Hey everybody, how's it going? I am Haley Gray and this is my friend Victoria Bentley, and we are here tonight talking to you about practical, real, honest to God leadership, because leadership is not just some concept. It is not doing trust walks. It is not seeing how many drops of water you can put on a penny. It's not any of those things. If you guys are on the live, give me a hashtag live. If you're on the replay, give me a hashtag replay. Let us know that you are out there. And we are excited to be here. I'm going to do something that I normally do when I'm by myself. But I have this super attractor deck that I like to do. It's Gabrielle Bernstein. So I'm going to pull a card, and each one is a little bit of inspiration. Okay. And they're hand watercolor. Well, they're printed, obviously, but they're watercolored and inspiring. So which card would you like me to pull, Vicki? Top, bottom, in between?
Oh, gosh. In the middle. In the middle.
In the middle? Where in the middle?
Just close your eyes and grab one out of the middle.
One of these, maybe? That one?
That's it.
Ooh, you're going to like these. I accidentally grabbed two, but this is the one that showed up.
And it has purple on it.
And it has purple on it. I decide today to recalibrate my energy to commit to love and joy.
Wow, that's so different from what I said earlier.
Isn't it fun?
Practical leadership. Someone said something to me today about, she's of Russian descent.
Mm-hmm.
And she was telling me how her family had to escape Russia and go to South Africa. And now they're in the United States, and her grandfather was murdered, and on and on and on. And she was saying, this has nothing to do with politics. Okay, just I'm going to be real clear. Anyway, she was saying, it was so terrible. And I said, she said, I don't know what you do about, Lenin and Stalin. And I said, well, and she's Jewish. And I said, so with a little hindsight, how about throwing Hitler in there? And she said, yeah, I don't know what I'd do. And I said, and she has a business in leadership. And it was stunning that she called me, because I said, oh, by the way, my friend Haley and I are doing a podcast today on leadership. And I said, how would you handle that? And I said, with 20/20 hindsight. And she had trouble answering it.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, wow. So leadership. Yes, love, yes, joy. But leadership is about making tough decisions and owning it.
Oh, absolutely.
And you and I were just talking about some of the hard things you have to do when you're the leader, the owner of a business.
Absolutely.
And it's your business. And if the client's unhappy, it's on you, because the customer's always right. And you don't have the luxury of saying, well, the secretary didn't get the paperwork done. No, it's on you. It's your business. And as a leader, the answer is, I don't know the answer, but I will get back to you within the hour, and we're going to get this resolved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and what I find so interesting about leadership in general is that it's become such a buzzword. My kids' school has this whole program that's called Lead From Here. And, it's...
Are you talking about your daughter in Cincinnati?
Well, so my son that's in high school now, and my daughter that's in Cincinnati now, the high school that she used to go to, and the school that my youngest son used to go to. And what I found particularly interesting about it is that they're trying to set this growth, expansive mindset, which is interesting, but it's not necessarily what is leadership. It's not a practical application, and it's very hard when you're doing these abstract, funny things, problem-solving things, to turn those into any kind of leadership. Because there's no communication, there's no mastery of self, there's no owning of self, there's no leadership of self involved in putting drops of water on a penny.
Okay, let me stop you, because this also came into the conversation I had this afternoon, and that is, she was talking about how younger people today, her employees as well, younger people today are approaching everything from a point of feeling.
Mm-hmm.
She said, you have to understand they got a trophy no matter what. And so they're easily offended, they're easily sensitive. And to me,
Mm-hmm.
it takes the three components: logos, thinking, ethos, values, pathos, your feelings. Leadership, to me, is putting us, when you need to be a leader, it's putting aside your feelings and doing the logical and the ethical thing
And
for the
doing the right thing.
yeah, for the right, for the right, do the right thing for the right reasons, for the right people.
Mm-hmm.
And because if you get caught up in your emotions, you're going to make a damn dumb decision.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I've been there a few times in my life. I mean,
Oh,
we were
oh,
talking about
and I
one.
divorced him, I mean,
But it's even like things like today, I was having the discussion with the vet over my dog, and he's like, kind of at that point where he's insinuating, well, maybe it's time to have her put down. And I'm like, well, are we actually giving her a chance to see what her quality of life is and whether she recovers? And it was like, oh, and it's not an ego thing. It's like, no, we will time bound this discussion, but we are going to give somebody a chance to recover.
but that's logos and ethos and taking pathos out of it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is the dog eating? Is the dog exhibiting pain? Do we have a solution for the pain? Do we have, you know,
Exactly. Can we
think,
manage the pain?
Mhm.
Can we manage quality of life? Can we do these things? Oh, look, we did.
Or is
Huh.
it about not hurting my feelings, saying goodbye to my pet?
Right.
It's, it can't be about feelings. Um,
And I mean, I've gone through this plenty of times, with my mother, with my father, very, very, very tough stuff. But, even like in my businesses, there have been times where I've had to make those decisions, and even here in the group, there's a lot of times that I have to make very wildly unpopular decisions that have, very much less to do with how I feel about the subject and much more to do with this is how I observe things to work. Now, could I be wrong? Absolutely. That's the how I observe things to work and how I believe them to work, and taking my emotional feelings out of it. Here's what I believe that the, analysis is going to yield, and lead accordingly. So like in Women's Entrepreneur Network, it's a no promo environment. Not because, I don't think that people should be able to promote themselves, but because the observed behaviors are such when it is a no promo environment. So we provide a different environment intentionally. Do people hate it? Yes. Have people cursed me out? Yes. Have people called me a bitch? Pretty regularly.
and when you're a leader, you got to tough that out.
You do.
That goes with the territory.
Well, and not everybody's going to love you when you're a leader.
Oh,
I mean,
well.
and I think that the more that you stand on your principles and you stand on who you are, and the more you show up as who you are rather than trying to me too and be like somebody else, the more haters you're going to find. I mean, it's kind of like a path of, a sign that you've arrived.
Oh, well.
Oh, well.
Um,
And I do celebrate the haters. I mean, I had my first really nasty review on my book and I threw a party.
Ooh, you're tough. You got a thick skin, girl.
You gotta take it for what it's worth. Somebody
That's
was
right.
like, "Yeah, I hated this book
Comes with
so
the
much, it really
territory.
hurt my feelings. I couldn't read it." Okay, uh,
Snowflake.
snowflakes.
So, I come from a family of pilots, and I can remember early on, um, my father and I talking about we're sitting waiting
Hmm.
waiting at the runway
Hmm.
on the ramp, and we're holding because somebody's landing. And my father says to me, "So, what are you going to do if your engine quits 3/4 of the way down the runway?" I'd never thought about it before. And he said this great line to me. You want to use your superior judgment so you don't have to find out if you got superior skills. Meaning, if you're in a position where you haven't thought something out and you've taken off and you're at 1,000 feet and your engine quits, if you go all emotion, you're going to forget that you got to fly the plane and you're going to auger in like a lawn dart as opposed to, gee, can I go around? Gee, is there a field in front of me? Is there a farm? Is there a road? Is there a whatever? As opposed to, oh my God, the engine's quit. What am I going to do? Blah, blah, blah. So if you think ahead of time and if you use your judgment and you ease the emotion out of this stuff, and I don't mean being hard-hearted Hannah here. That's not what I'm advocating. I'm saying be smart. If you use your judgment, if you use your values and your thinking, you'll do right by yourself. You'll do right by people. And you don't have to worry about the emotional end of it. Save the emotion for something good, you know.
But totally. I mean, this is how I've gotten where I've gotten with Laura. This is my oldest daughter. You know, it's by that, like, okay, I see this coming. Here, I'm going to handle this situation. You know, and then, you know, predicting, you know, and you start to learn to predict what the, you know, the hospital, the insurance, the social workers are going to say. So, you know, it's an education process, you know, for me, but, you know, learning how they're going to react and then figuring out how to counter it in an unemotional kind of way, even though I'm screaming on my inside and going, but you guys are a bunch of bleepity, bleepity, bleepity morons, you know? And it's like, no, I can't react that way.
You don't have the luxury of reacting that way.
No, I don't, because they're going to think I'm a hyper, you know, over emotional mother, and they'll shut you down.
You won't be able to do right for your daughter.
No. And now the social workers are very chill around me because they're like, oh, well, you're not one of those people. And I've had doctors tell me that, you know, when I was dealing with my mother passing away and I was dealing with other things, they're like, oh, well, you're not one of those crazy, hyped up, over emotional kind of people. So we're going to give it to you straight. I was like, thank you. I appreciate it. Now I can go be hysterical elsewhere, but right now in this moment in time where I'm having to make crucial decisions, flip that bit off. It's a tough thing to do.
It is. And I think men are very good at compartmentalizing. And I think women are not always as good at it. And I think that's an important piece of leadership is you've got to be able to, okay, somebody is really unhappy with me because of this. Okay, we're going to put that in a box over here because right now I have to take care of that.
Yeah.
It's pushing the emotion out of it and going back to the task at hand.
And make no mistake, my husband knows good and well he's going to hear about it for like the next 4 weeks as I talk it out of my system and work it out of my system. But in the moment, I'm very like methodical. That's why you've teased me about you want me to be your co-pilot when the wing falls off the plane.
I always say that. I can think of the times that I've, you know, I hold my breath on crosswind landings and I'm wiping my sweaty palms on my jeans, you know, yeah. Whereas and the co-pilot I fly with is like, yeah, not sure where we are. We'll figure it out. And I'm going, oh my God. And that is an important skill. And in everything you do is leaving the pathos over here and not making that the first go-to, which so many young people are.
I wouldn't say even just young people. I would say all people. You know, because, well, yeah, I think so. I think our lizard brains really badly want to take over, and it prevents us from doing the needful at the time that we need to do it. It's our lizard brains.
From one reptile to another, huh?
Absolutely.
Oh my,
slither. But seriously, but
oh
we
my
have
God.
that part of our brain that is, that fight or flight reflex, that lizard brain, where you're landing in a crosswind and you're going lizard brain, malfunction all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whereas, your co-pilot has, turned that part of the lizard brain off a bit and is
Yeah.
like, I'll deal with you later, lizard brain.
Yeah, and that's a talent. Well, for those of you all who have not heard the story, I was sitting out. I live in Florida some of the time, and I was sitting out on my balcony, and this kind of wraparound balcony with this lovely palm tree, and the hurricane was on the other coast, and it had come through. I had gotten there the night before. We were the last flight in because of this weather, and something I gather, and I've heard this post event, is that in hurricanes, snakes climb trees, and I guess they can tell by barometric pressure. They climb trees so they don't drown. That's preservation for snakes. They
Mm-hmm.
go up trees. So I'm sitting on my balcony and I hear this plop. And this snake falls out of a tree and lands at my feet. I mean, and I have pictures. If I need to, I will put them on the screen. Oh my word. He was 6 inches from my feet and hissing at me, and talk about lizard brain. I have, and I'm screaming to my husband, baby, I need you to come out here and I need you to bring those Rachel Ray oven mitts. And he's thinking, my wife has lost her mind. Why does she need oven mitts? She doesn't cook and she's outside. What the hell is going on? And they were those thick rubbery ones that they're kind of silicone anyway.
Right.
The snake couldn't bite through them. Anyway, oh my gosh, something just popped up here. We have to make that go away.
So I have a really funny one of those kinds of snake stories.
I have something here that just keeps popping up, and it says Microsoft pick an account. How do and I keep closing it and it keeps popping up.
You're probably not signed into a particular account.
I am not signed in, but I don't want to be signed in either. So what do I do?
Click it away every time it keeps popping up.
Oh God, it's every 3 seconds. This is annoying. Anyway,
So y'all, that I grew up in South America, right?
Yes.
And in Venezuela in particular for quite a bit of time, which is in the tropics. And my dad at the time was a very avid fisherman. So they would take the little bitty, teeny, tiny aluminum boat, they'd put it on top of the Toyota Land Cruiser, and they'd go off into the middle of the forest. Oh, isn't he cute?
What landed, and he had a pointy head, so I was sure he was poisonous and was going to kill me because I was in Florida. Okay.
Yeah. So my dad and his friend are out in the boat fishing, and they hear this crunching sound above themselves. This loud crashing, crunching sound because they were in the water, but the trees were over them. And they observed snake start coming out of the tree.
Oh my word.
And snake and more snake and more snake. And it was an anaconda dropping out of the tree and into the water.
And how big is this anaconda?
So they're...
I mean, they squeeze you to death, right?
Yeah, they will eat humans. It was probably 20 or 30 feet. So they were like, we're leaving here now. We're going elsewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, so but it was really funny because my dad's like, yeah, we decided we were going to just mosey in another direction. And I'm like, yeah, I bet you did.
I reckon so.
I bet you decided you were going to mosey right on out of there.
Wow.
My dad had lots of those kinds of stories.
So leaders have got to be cool under fire.
Absolutely.
And leaders have to defer feeling so that their heads are clear to make intelligent, proper choices.
Mm-hmm. Keeps you alive.
Yeah. And yeah, the fight or flight, that's gonna get you motoring away from the anacondas right quick. Um, but it can't be crippling. It can't be
No, you can't go, jumping out of the boat because there's an anaconda in the water next to you.
right, because there could be piranhas in the water.
And there likely were piranhas in the water.
Wow. So, and then you move to Alabama. I get it,
Then we moved to Rio de Janeiro, and then we moved to Alabama.
Yeah. Wow.
Tiny little bit of culture shock.
Rio. What a cool place.
It was. It really was. I miss it so much.
I'd go for the music.
Oh, go for the culture. It's amazing.
What's good about Rio is that you can be my age in a two-piece bathing suit, and so is everybody else.
Absolutely.
It's like, do your thing. And I as opposed to, you just don't get the body shaming in Rio that you get. You know what I mean?
Oh, no. And the men wear their bikinis too.
Yeah, the Speedos on the guys and the two pieces on Zoftig women, like more power to you. Cool.
Absolutely, because everybody wears them. But the only downside of the little teeny tiny bikinis, I was a tiny little scrawny thing growing up, but I did wear the teeny itsy bitsy teeny weeny string bikinis, is you sunburn everywhere, especially when you're fair and pale skinned.
And you, honey, are pale face. Yes, you are.
And yes, I have sunburned everywhere. So moral of the story, we didn't know about sunscreen at the time, but I should have been wearing a lot more sunscreen, a lot more covering, because I've had to have moles taken off of places.
Yeah, you've got the incision.
Yeah, I've got the melanoma scar.
Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit more about leadership. And
yeah. It's a particular thing of mine too, Like, how do you know if somebody's showing actual leadership?
Tell me.
I was asking you the question, but I'm thinking, how do you really determine if somebody is showing leadership or if they're just being a brat?
I never thought of it that way. I've been in leadership roles for a long, long time. And I don't often think about how it appears. I think about doing what I've got to do. And
yeah, it's that influence piece, right? And I mean, I think that sometimes leadership can come off as being very abrasive to other people.
Yeah.
And it's why women who are leaders a lot of times are called bitches.
Right. Whereas men are called go-getters.
Yeah.
Outspoken, assertive women.
Well, I know plenty of people who, huh?
I think that's where Southern women do it well, because they can do it in a smiling way. Versus New Yorkers. New Yorkers can be really in your face and really pushy. And I see Southern women leaders can do it almost more gracefully. I don't quite know the words that I'm looking for.
There's a civility, absolutely. I mean, I think that
they say that's nice instead of fuck you. I mean,
right, absolutely. Well, and I bless your heart, right? Well, and I think that Southern manners, up until recently at least, are such that, and I mean, just to be clear, I wasn't raised in the US, but my parents were Texan. And then I moved back to the US when I was in middle school. So, I have some of those kind of cultural things because that's where my family is fairly Southern. And, there's just a lot of behavior that, my mother and my grandmother and my aunts would not have tolerated.
Yes, I know exactly what you mean.
And my great grandmother would have ripped me, strips off my hide if I broke the rules. I broke the rules a couple of times by driving from Alabama to Texas to visit the family. But, you know, and wearing a blue wedding dress was pretty much over the top.
I think that's funny.
But
Yeah.
true.
Um,
I was a maverick and I didn't know it. I was 19 when I got married and I wore a blue wedding dress
and why did you wear a blue wedding dress?
because I look awful in white.
I think it's neat. I'd love to see a picture of it.
I'll see. I have to see if I can find it. I think I probably have one on Facebook somewhere. It's one
Okay.
of the few pictures that actually has like my husband in it as well. But yes.
I think.
And true story, I'm a smaller size now than when I got married at 19.
Are you?
I am, but I weigh 50 pounds more.
Huh. Well,
If that isn't weird for you, I don't know what is.
I don't know. But I'm still back on the leadership thing. And I think
No, you march to the beat of your own drummer too.
yeah, you've got to develop your own style. And I think with age comes wisdom. But I think that there are some people who are natural leaders. I mean, I think there are programs that develop leaders like the Navy, you
Absolutely.
officer candidate school and such. And you see who the leaders are. And I think, who you talked about your daughters in Girl Scouts and boys being Eagle Scouts. I mean, those are
That's a
great
leadership program.
programs. Yeah.
But I also do see, so my daughters both have earned their Girl Scout Gold Awards, but I will for the purposes of this discussion, we'll talk about my younger daughter because my older daughter has got so many issues with the psychiatric stuff. But Xena is very fascinating because it's it's situational. You do all this leadership training and all these leadership programs. And you march to the beat of your own drummer, but then every once in a while there's that just huge desire to conform and be like everybody else.
Yeah.
And be influenced to do the same silly college student things.
But you know what? I don't know. At my age, I don't mean it in a rude way. I don't, because
No.
that's not my thing. I can't worry about what somebody thinks. I've got to do the right thing. I've got to do my job. I've got to get stuff out. I've got to get things accomplished.
Yeah, my job is not to really worry what other people think.
That's right.
But I think
I had that conversation.
Age and treachery brings that on a bit.
You and I had a conversation earlier in the week about someone we both know whose leadership skills are failing and has forgotten who the customer is and has forgotten how to be courteous to the people who pay her for her work. And I think about this and I think that's a big part of leadership is setting aside your person. Somebody might be angry with you or somebody, whatever. You have to set that aside and set.
Well, and you have to take ownership.
So principles above personalities. You have to look at what is the appropriate thing. And yeah, they're mad at me or yeah, they said something I didn't like, whatever. I still have to accomplish X, Y, and Z.
Well, and the other thing too that I think that leaders do is they take ownership. Somebody that is a true leader will take ownership
for their whole team,
for their entire team. So if you're working for a company, you take responsibility for that client for the entire team. And it's not that's not me. I didn't do that and trying to pass the buck.
Yeah, not my job is not.
It's not my job. And that's definitely not leadership. And, the Teflon, and what's really interesting is that people try to Teflon and they try to play, my husband refers to it as Bert bingo. So like when they have a bug, he's a software engineer. Every once in a while you get one that's a little bit harder to debug and people will play Bert bingo because a Bert is a bug defect, a software code defect. And sometimes people will assign them to different engineers because I can't figure it out. You over here figure it out. This person will be like, no, you figure it out. No, this isn't mine. No, you figure it out. So they call it Bert bingo. And, my husband's response in that instance was a very fascinating, I will be happy to take ownership of this, Bert, but you both have to review the code to verify the fix.
Okay.
But it's that taking ownership. And to me, that's a really important step, is that taking ownership of the situation and making sure that things are taken care of, so that we have, that those pieces and parts.
So many of these things can be applied in so many areas of our life. In a marriage, you have to take ownership. And sometimes when it's not something you did, saying I'm sorry is a really important thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, okay, now let's look at it. But being
Mm-hmm.
able to say I'm sorry. And I think a good leader says I'm sorry if they have hurt someone, or
They take ownership.
mhm,
It's
mhm,
that ownership piece.
mhm.
Whether or not it's really their fault, they take ownership. And my husband's comment was that, the further up you go in management and the further you go up in leadership in a large company, the more time you spend saying, I'm sorry, mea culpa.
Mhm, mhm. I'm changing the subject, but I'm not. And I want to throw this out here. This came up twice today, and I figure, okay, this has come up twice today,
Mm-hmm.
and there must be a reason for it, in talking to different people. And I heard someone say, "My children come first." And I was reminded of all the times I sat as the divorce lawyer and people were in my office saying, "Well, I'm sorry, but my children come first." And I thought, maybe that's why you're here, because in a marriage, the children are not first. And you have a responsibility to take care of those children, but children do not come first. And maybe in so many people putting their children first have given children the idea that they have parity and that they have a vote, or that they have equality in
Yeah,
the family.
I would say that they have equality, and not in our household, at least. Kids have a vote. So if we're talking about school selections, especially as they get older,
But they don't have a vote in everything, though. I mean,
no, they don't have a vote in everything, but they
right.
do
They
have a
don't
vote
sit
in
around the family table and
key
say,
decisions that impact them.
yeah, sure. Like, where do you want to go to school? Let's talk about your feelings
Yeah, but
about
we don't give them choices over, are you going on the family vacation, or are you coming home for Thanksgiving?
well, and also on the subject of school, which you said that applied to them, you're saying, okay, your choice is one of these four schools.
Yes.
Not,
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
at least through high school. Once they get into college, my response is figure it out. Here's the budget.
Right. But at that point, they're not children anymore. They're 18.
No, they're adults. And
Um,
certainly once they're 15, 16, 17, 18, they need to be making those decisions anyway.
that's right. That's right. And leadership is developed by parents, not by giving anything they want,
Mm-hmm.
but by displaying what the consequences are
Right.
for the choices and taking
Yes.
the emotion out of it, you know,
Yeah. Well,
taking the tantrum out of it.
my younger son definitely made the tough decision this year.
Tell me about it.
So we pulled him out of his regular school in February, and he was doing online virtual school through an accredited school
It's not
and
everybody's gig.
tutoring. And he discovered, while we were doing that, we were applying to other schools for the fall. And, he had to deal with, okay, so here are my options for the fall. And his choice was to go to in-person school, and his predominant choices for in-person school were boarding schools at this point.
Mhm.
So he's chosen to go to a military boarding school, which he loves. he loves the school. He's having a blast. So I don't regret it at all.
Well, but you were part of that, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. I gave him choice. I gave him a list of choices,
That's right.
and he ranked.
Your
And
leadership. You're protecting him. You're guiding him. Like if we picked A, B, C, or D, any of A, B, C, or D would be good for him.
right, and I allowed him to rank his choices.
There you go.
And all things being equal, the funding, the financing, everything else being there, he got to choose between them.
I had this friend who had children about my age, and this conversation was 20 years ago. And he had these two sons who were extremely successful.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just saying that they were earning $1 million. They were. But they had happy marriages and they had stable children. And people who knew them liked them. They were well thought of in the community. They gave away a lot of their time. There were just many positive things I could say about them.
Mm-hmm.
And I knew the parents because the parents were friends of my parents. And I had an opportunity over a cocktail long ago to say, you did this really well. And so many
Mm-hmm.
of my parents' friends' children have
Mm-hmm.
not turned out as well. I mean, a lot
Right.
of were
Right.
60s and the 70s. I mean, turbulent times. And he said, well, I have this box theory. I said, okay. He said, I would give my children a box. The box might be, you can go out on Friday from 8 to 10.
Mm-hmm.
And when they learned the rules of that box and did that box successfully, I made the box a little bigger. You can go out on Friday and Saturday from 8 to 10. And that box would expand if the homework were done, or if the chores were done, or if whatever the response, whatever. But I thought about it and I thought, now that's leadership as a parent. You are giving the child, he wants to go out with his friends. But in exchange, you have to comply with certain rules and have to learn to accept the boundaries. And you have to learn to respect the parent setting the boundary. And I just thought that was so cool. And he said, eventually, I just didn't need a box anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I have never forgotten that. And he and his wife died, in the last 5 years, in their upper 90s.
Wow.
And they lived a long and happy life. And they had a good run. And their children are just really good people, good, stable people. And the parents made consistent, stable,
Mm-hmm.
honest decisions that took the emotion out of the decision making. Here are
Yeah.
the rules. Here you go. Now you have a choice.
Yep.
I thought maybe that's how parents teach leadership. Maybe that's part
It
of
was.
why, this guy's the CEO of a bank. I don't know.
Yeah, my dad did it a little bit differently. I was allowed to go out. I was allowed to do whatever I wanted. But there's a catch, right? I had to tell my parents where I was going, who I was going to be with, and when I was going to be back.
Accountability.
Accountability drives my daughter nuts.
So different styles for different children, perhaps.
But it works really well. Where are you going? When are you going to be back? Where is the car going?
And what are the consequences?
Right. Absolutely. And if you lie to me, we can track your location with your cell phone. And if the car is not back, and sometimes the car has a curfew and you might not have a curfew. And
I'm thinking of two things as you're describing this. I'm thinking about a friend of mine. That's too strong a word. An acquaintance of mine, because I just cannot spend any time with her without just wanting to lose it. But she and her husband had these two twins who were going off to college. And they said, you ready for this? They said, okay, college costs $500,000.
mm-hmm.
And they gave each of them $500,000 at age 18 and said, okay, you manage this. By the time they were 19, the money was gone, and they had not completed a year of college. And these very, oh so woke, oh so hip parents who thought they were doing such a cool thing by respecting their children and wanting their children to like them. To this day, the kids are now 24, don't understand how that happened. Additionally, these children have not finished college and are both back at home. And she said on this, we were all together, she said, I just don't understand how this happened. And I thought, it's because from years 0 to 18, you didn't teach them how to manage anything.
That's tough.
Why would you think that, everything was given, nothing was asked in return? There were no consequences, there were no rules, there were no curfews, there were none of that. And I think about that. And in the same thing, and I thought about it because of similar parents, similar friends, parents who gave their 3 children an allowance, which was a very large allowance, and then required them, okay, out of this allowance, you need to pay this much for rent to us. I mean, we're talking as 7-year-olds, this much for food. And so they learned how to budget and they became very savvy. But I'll also throw this in. The common denominator for the screwiness over and over again in the examples in my law practice and in like what I'm telling you was alcoholism and the screwy thinking with the impaired parents can really do a number on the understanding and
the leadership and the development. So many things.
Yeah.
And we are at 9:05, so we should call it a night.
We should. We'll talk further about this.
This has been interesting. Thank you.
Thank
you, guys.
Good night, everybody.
There goes my clock. 5 minutes late.